as you probably know, my name is Nancy Turbak Berry, and I'm the chair of the Coalition for Freedom Amendment G. We have a really special group to add to the coalition, and so we decided to do another public announcement and introduce the head of that group, Erin Williams. Erin is going to tell you about herself and how she's gotten involved and why, but she is kicking off the coalition member that is a group called Mothers and Daughters for Freedom. Erin, you want to just tell a little bit about yourself and then, why and how you got involved and what your hopes are?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Nancy. As Nancy said, my name is Erin Williams. I am leading the chair. I'm the chair of the Moms and Daughters group. We're now sort of evolving into families because we've expanded a lot to include dads and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers and lots of people who aren't parents, but are obviously someone's daughter and someone's son who are concerned with the way things are going here in South Dakota. I got involved actually just pretty recently because I felt like the tide was not going visibly in the way that I wanted to see it. And I knew that there were a lot of us moms, a lot of us parents who were seeing a lot of support on the other side and not a lot of support on the side to uphold our rights. So I decided that I had to get involved, and I knew that I would have a group to follow and join me along. At this point, we are close to 600 strong, which I'm very proud of. We are a pretty widely diverse group, super supportive. I mean, this is an amazing group of people that I'm proud to be a part of. I personally have joined in because I, like most women in America, am one of four. My reproductive history is like a lot of women's. I've experienced pregnancy loss at 13 weeks. I went through the whole rigmarole of chemical trying to get rid of products of conception. Didn't work, had to have myself a D&C. I think 1 in 4 is a number we have to repeat, that this is happening far more than people want to acknowledge and far more than we'll admit. I did have one successful pregnancy before that. That was easy. I'd like to say easy, non-complicated, not easy. It's never easy to be pregnant. And then experienced my loss. My third pregnancy with my son Lucas was complicated as well. I had Lucas in my uterus and a second pregnancy in one of my fallopian tubes. At the time when we realized that was happening, I had a very viable pregnancy that I desperately wanted in my uterus, and then this pregnancy that still was sort of unknown. Thankfully, things didn't develop on that end. And I think 9 years ago, it would have been resolved and I would have been okay, but I hesitate to think what would happen to me today. And we struggled as a family to get pregnant with Lucas after my loss, and to have experienced something and then perhaps lost the opportunity to have more children after that would have been devastating. After having my son, after giving birth to my son, I had a terrible, disastrous, nearly life-ending complication and postpartum hemorrhage. I lost more than half of my blood volume. I had an amazing OBGYN who saved my life, and I'm eternally grateful. And I think my kids are as well. I'm sure my husband would tell you that too. And I think in the direction we're going, we're putting a lot of people in danger, whether or not we're talking about if you need abortion care, or if you just need prenatal care, or if you experience a terrible postpartum complication like I do. So I felt like I needed to step up and protect other women and physicians as well. And then, of course, comes my emotional one, which is my daughter, and the lack of exception for rape and incest, which is absolutely unacceptable. And it's just, I can't even put into words how unbelievable it is to me that we would have legislature and a governor and senators that would support putting women and children in a position to have to raise a rapist's or a family member's baby. It's appalling. And it really says that we as women have to stand up and say, we're not going to stand for this, and it's not going to be my daughter. So that's why I got involved.
Erin, you mentioned that you've got hundreds of people now in the group.
Yes.
Originally titled Moms and Daughters, and
Yeah.
maybe we should refer to it as families. Can you identify, what's your sense of kind of the common, the most prominent concern that you see among your members that have motivated them to get involved?
From discussions, I think a lot of us are concerned about where this could take us. I think a lot of us are aware that the current legislation could unlock a lot of other personal freedoms that we have taken for granted. I think we worry about contraception. I think we worry about being told that we can't travel during pregnancy. I think that this isn't just about abortion. This is about who you marry and who you love and how you worship. And this basically is just the start to say, I'm okay with the government deciding what's right for me and my family. And I think most of us are saying, yeah, I got this. I don't need you to protect me, and I don't need you to make decisions about my health or my daughter's health. What
kinds of things has your group been doing so far?
Well, we're very grassroots, Nancy. You know this. It's a David and Goliath battle here. We are up against nationwide funding and a lot of money. And we are basically, I jokingly referred to it as PTO. We are out there, boots on the ground, where I'm sitting here right here waiting for my call, writing out my postcards. We are selling bracelets. We are just really trying to do community things. And I think part of it for me kind of reminds me that we are South Dakota, and that somewhere inside, I think we all have a great sense of community and protecting each other. And I hope that South Dakota voters are going to show up and protect our girls. And I think us coming together in a community has been really reassuring for me that there are people out there that want what's best for all of us.
Dominic or Lee, do you have any questions for Erin or me?
Yeah, I got a few. I apologize. I'm also hosting All Things Considered, so I have two different pairs of headphones on at the same time.
I hate to miss All Things Considered myself, but And Erin, I should introduce Lee. Lee is a reporter with South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Hi, Lee. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. Here, I'll turn my video on, but hopefully it. I was just wondering if y'all had any thoughts on the South Dakota Newswatch poll that came out today that shows support for Amendment G is kind of it's at 50%. It's more than opposition, but that it's kind of gone down a little bit since May. Any thoughts on that, and then what the next 2 weeks kind of look like for both of you as we head into the election?
Well, I'm glad you asked it. I almost brought it up myself, but I figured maybe one of you gentlemen would ask. I was concerned, but not surprised at the polling results that South Dakota Newswatch reported today. And the reason I say I'm not surprised is because there's been a huge battle to promote a lot of lies about Amendment G that are intended to scare people. And it seems like in American politics, and no less here in South Dakota, fear works better than just about anything. And so what we've seen intensify in the last month or two from the opponents are a lot of scare tactics. They're telling all kinds of lies that are, I think, causing people to think Amendment G is something other than what it is. you know, the kind of the latest, the fear tactic, the lie of the last few weeks that seems to be the primary emphasis is this false claim that Amendment G would eliminate parental consent laws. They also are claiming still, I guess with a straight face, that Amendment G would result in abortions up to birth. And then another lie that I see perpetuated is that the claim that that abortions can be performed by anyone, that the mechanic next door can do an abortion. And those lies, you know, if those were true, then their byline that Amendment G is extreme would also be true, because those would be extreme things. But Amendment G doesn't do any of those things. And so what we've seen, Lee, is projection of those people who are defending an extreme abortion ban, claiming that Amendment G is extreme. And of course, they're funded by some very big groups, including apparently the Catholic Church. Yeah. So it's really sad to me that the opponents of Amendment G are not willing to defend their position based on the truth. It's unfortunate, but they clearly realize that they cannot win at the polls if they are honest in their position, which is that they do not want abortion to be available at any time during pregnancy under virtually any circumstance. And that's, of course, the ban we have now, is that the only exception we have is for the life of the mother. But they know that that is not popular. And so instead of trying to convince people of their position, they've distorted ours. And what it means for the next few weeks is work, work, work. I'm on the road a lot. I think 3 times this week, I'll be on the road doing public forums. We are definitely being outspent. So we appreciate people like Erin. And she can tell you a little bit about what she and her group are doing. But what the effort is to educate people about the lies. I think everybody pretty much knows that South Dakota has an extreme ban, that the only exception is for the life of the mother. And I think most people know that the difficulties with that are, of course, surfacing for rape and incest victims. They're surfacing for couples that have fetal abnormalities. You know, there's all kinds of problems with the current ban, and I think people know that. And so what we have to do is shift to spending more time playing whack-a-mole with the outrageous and extreme lies that the opponents have been bringing up.
Right.
And Erin, I mean, you could talk a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Regarding? Do you mean just like activities, or what are we doing? I mean, I think it's one of the things that I've spoken to a lot of people about, and what we've spoken about in the group amongst ourselves is it is hard to be on this side of things, right? So for many years, I've been a proponent for women's rights and for women to have access to affordable healthcare and correct healthcare. And the problem is that it's sort of fly your flag if you're on the other side, which I like to call pro-birth. And it's dirty to be on this side. And so I think that we've been categorized, right, and put in this little pocket of people who are meant to feel bad for what we're doing. And now I think I'm here with my group, and we're saying I'm not going to back down now. I'm not backing down. I'm gonna protect my kid. I'm gonna protect my own right to get healthcare when I need it. And I'm going to say, like, no, we're not doing late term abortions. I mean, I think one of the things that I think that people have to realize is that in 2021, South Dakota had 192 abortions. 7 of them were after 13 weeks. I mean, we have thousands of no flags out there, like we are performing thousands of abortions. Meanwhile, we had 800 rape-related pregnancies last year, and no one is coming out to talk about that, and that's appalling to me. So what I get that the polling might be saying 50-50, but I mean, 81% of Americans don't want government in their healthcare regarding abortion. And there are a lot of us. We might not be as vocal, and we might not be as out there, and we might not be leaving mass with 12 or 14 no on G signs. But we are going to vote, and we are really encouraging other people to vote. I mean, I got together with this group of mine and we're writing postcards encouraging people that we know will support G and get out there and vote and protect our daughters. And I think that regardless of what the polls say, that South Dakotans will make the right choice and defend our freedom to choose and make choices for our own families.
Dominic or Lee, anything else?
Yeah, I gotta follow up. I'm done with my talk break. I was just wondering if the if the opponents of Amendment G are out there kind of defining Amendment G, what's the plan to get through to maybe kind of like lower information voters, maybe the ones that might not be attending forums and talks and stuff like that? Is there any kind of ad plan to maybe define what Amendment G is, sort of heading into the last 2 weeks?
Well, I have to admit that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse because you know, as you kind of know, I'm doing the events like this and the forums. But there have been some television ads started. I've seen 2 of them. One is features Dr. Amy Kelly talking about the importance for the government to get out of the exam room. And the other ad that is playing features at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen South Dakota women talking about personal freedom. I know that ad is running. I think there's also going to be a greater presence on social media. One thing personally, I know maybe the pros maybe say yard signs don't matter, but I know that especially on this issue, folks like to know they're not alone.
Yes.
And so recently in Watertown, we've just started making yard signs available, and I've got folks contacting me all the time asking for those. And I'll tell you, Lee, I have a piece coming out in several places this week that talks about that addresses very specifically some of the main lies. So that's all I can tell you. Fortunately, I have neither the obligation to raise money nor the pleasure of spending it. So I can't give you a lot of detail about exactly what's happening on that front.
I'm just scraping together bracelets, really, trying to raise money $5 at a time. So I'm not in charge either.
Erin and her group have sent out thousands of postcards.
Yes.
And I mean, when we talk grassroots, this is very grassroots. This is women and, women gathering at kitchen tables, reaching out to other women and families to say it really is serious and we need you to show up at the polls.
Absolutely.
Dominic, anything at all that you'd like to know about we haven't touched on?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Oops, I can hardly hear you. Can you hear me? I mean, Erin?
A little bit.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, thank you. Least all the most of the good questions. I had one more from for Erin. Erin, in a state like South Dakota, predominantly red, having trigger law passed, and you're in this position that you're in now, fighting for Amendment G. Why? What prompts you to put together this group and go through with this fight?
I think the first thing that started for me was I actually reached out to Rick with my I had this tagline in my head that said "Not my daughter," and I have a 12-year-old daughter who can get pregnant, right? So the average onset of menstruation is 2 years ago, probably for most American girls. So at 10, there are little girls who could get raped and would be forced into motherhood. And it is it's almost paralyzing, the fear of what that would do to my beautiful, brilliant daughter. And the fact that South Dakota is basically telling her and me, because it would be me as well, right? If I were raped and something happened to me, that they're willing to trade my life for an unborn child that they think has more importance than me. So I felt I needed to step up and protect Lila, and all of the other girls in South Dakota. And I also think not just little girls. I mean, it's guttural when you talk about it as little girls, because the idea, I mean, Kristi Noem herself said that a tragedy shouldn't beget another tragedy about not allowing a 10-year-old to have an abortion, to end a pregnancy. And I think forcing a child to carry her rapist baby to term is horrifying. And I think for a long time, there have been things in South Dakota as a red state have really, really bothered me. Again, I say pro-birth. We don't have very good prenatal care for many women. We don't have paid parental leave for mothers or fathers. We don't have state-funded preschool. We refuse to pay for school lunch. Just this year, 3 times we voted against helping the childcare crisis. I mean, we have over 300 kids in foster care currently that are available for adoption, and the average age is 9. 1,200 kids in foster care. So South Dakota and Kristi Noem are so focused on abortion. Remember, 192 abortions, 192, when we have these 1,500 kids that are already living and already need our help. And we've just turned our backs and said, we're not going to worry about you because we're going to worry about the ones that might be coming. So I think for me, it was being a mom, and it was being a woman, and it was somebody has to do something. And thank God that Dakotans for Health and Nancy were there for me to have someone's lead to follow and somewhere to go, to have a mentor to step in and try to bring in some other moms that felt the same way. But for sure, for me, it was motherhood, and the fact that I'm damn lucky that I got to make a choice about when I wanted to be a mom.
Thanks for
Erin,
answering.
how have people joined your group? And if somebody wanted to join your group, how would they get a hold of you and become part of the effort?
Well, dear Nancy, we're sort of an underground group. Again, we're kind of targeted, kind of vilified. So you have to find yourself an ally, and then your allies will find us. We're out there. You look for the bracelets. You'll find us in places.
You flashed the bracelets, but you also flashed a postcard. Tell them a little
Yes.
bit about that. That's kind of an interesting thing. That you've got yard signs and postcards that came out of your
Yes.
group.
Yes. When we contacted Rick, I'd said that I wanted something that was a little more focused on our daughters. And so ours says, G is for girls, protect our daughters, vote yes on Amendment G. And again, that's how it all started, to protect my kid. She was here with me last night when we were doing bracelets, and we talked about it, about how different it was for my mother, and how different it was for me up until 2 years ago, and that I hope that it won't be back to prior to my mom for these girls growing up, that I hope that they can have safe access to birth control and medical care and abortion access.
Anything else?
One more question from me, and hopefully I don't bump into what Lee already kind of asked about, but kind of just, and hate to ask you to look into the crystal looking glass or crystal ball, but when we get to the last 10 or last 5 days before the election, and kind of following the Newswatch poll, I mean, how do you feel the last 5 days? might shape up, or I guess maybe more in a different way. What do you think your end game kind of plan is going to be to push for more yes on Amendment G votes in the last 5 to 10 days?
I can go on that one, Nancy. So my hope is that our group is going to finish out this next group of postcards, an astronomical number that we have arriving that we're super excited about. I hope we knock them out really quickly. And then Tiffany's here. I'm surprised. We're gonna hopefully set up a phone bank, and I think we'll bring some snacks and we'll sit at some lunch tables, and we are gonna get boots on the ground, and we're gonna fight like hell. We're not going down. We're not going down easily here. We're not gonna lay down and let South Dakotans get their rights taken away. I mean, this is our time to have our voice heard, and if we don't do it now, I don't know that it's going to happen again. So I think for those of us in my group, we are a bunch of tough moms and dads, and we'll go without sleep, and we will work through the night, and I believe that we can pull this out together. I think that we really can.
And what a different image that is than the image of the legislators that sit in Pierre and are so removed from these everyday problems and know full well that South Dakotans twice have voted against their ban.
Right.
And yet, you know, they sit in their little caucus rooms and make decisions for the families of South Dakota.
Right. Right.
You might say, Lee, this is an unplanned democracy unrolling here. That's what we've got going.
Yep. The moms are fighting back.
Anything else, anybody? Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, Erin, for taking time out of your busy day to tell us about what you're doing.
Good to see you.
Okay, everybody have a good evening.